The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So I've started the broadcast now. Once we get some people in there, I'll start talking and I will mute it once you guys start talking. I'll mute myself rather.
All right, thank you, sir.
No worries. Oh, has nobody shown up yet? Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, sir. We are here.
Yeah, we've got no one's shown up yet. What I suggest we do, hang on for a little bit, and then I'd be very surprised if nobody showed up because normally we get over like a 50% turnout rate.
Yep.
Which is kind of standard for webinars. Yeah. So I'm quite surprised because we did one. The one we did last month was we got about 50-60% showed up. So if I'm sure some people will show up. If they don't, should we still record this?
Fine by me. Because if you say the playback is if you say the playback is worthwhile, then it's worth recording, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Let's give it a couple more minutes. If we don't get any sign of people, let's just start going. We'll skip the polls and we'll just get into it.
Okay, sounds good.
But I'm really surprised by this. I mean, I don't know. I'll look again, and there were quite a lot of Australians registered, but there's a fair few from the States as well.
Do you usually send out reminder emails like an hour before or a day before, stuff like that for your webinar?
Yeah, go to webinar, does it?
It's auto, right?
Yeah, it's all done. We did send some stuff out.
Oh. No, it's definitely worthwhile just to have the recording up.
Oh, absolutely.
And plus it gives us
feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, we'll feel better about ourselves. But the content doesn't sound like total bunk.
The content looks really good. The only comment I might make, and you can shoot me down on this, is maybe the title could be, I'm not going to say off-putting, but scary to accountants. What do you think? But my feeling is publishing culture is, they might be a bit sort of, what is that like? I don't even. I think what I've found with, and I think your webinar is going to explain things to firms though, is you often have to go real back to basics with things, and also put like a real simple, tangible benefit in there. So whether we flipped it round to like use content to get more traffic and leads, or something that like that. I don't know what you think about that.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a legit critique. I mean, I don't know. Not being an accountant anymore, I don't know how that title strikes accountants. You don't want to put those on. Wait a second. Oh my God. I told you. You just put on my prescription sunglasses. Don't ask me why.
Caleb is bad.
I've been wearing glasses since I was in second grade.
How he even got to my place today, my office, is shocking.
Well, I wore my glasses.
You see him without glasses, run. Get off the road, man. He'll probably be driving on the other side of the road thinking he's on the road.
Well, if I'm in New Zealand, that's the right side of the road.
Hey, I tell you, my friend calls it the killing season at the moment. You get a lot of Asian drivers over here on holiday. Always driving like a Toyota Land Cruiser on the wrong side, or like a what do you call them, like an RV, like
SUV.
No, what's it called? No, not that.
Mobile home?
Winnebago, yeah, mobile home, yeah.
Oh, the RVs.
The big one. The big one.
Oh, yeah.
It's scary.
Bad news.
Yeah. So
just do it, man.
Yeah, it's 5 after. We can carry on.
Let's kick it off, yeah. But that's the only thing I think. Like, so I think we could repeat this at another time and probably get over 100 people registering. But maybe just tweet. I think the title, I don't know. That would be my only. That the slides look great and all of that, and I think accountants really want this kind of information. But almost, I think that's like, I don't know what you think, Brian. You work with more firms on their marketing, maybe more advanced firms, but I think some of the smaller firms might get put off by something like.
Yeah, no, it's totally valid what you're saying. I think it's true. I think the word publishing culture will scare everyone away. We just have to make it sound like something they can relate to, and cooler and easier and more fun. That's all we got to do. We just got to put it in a different package. The product's solid.
That's all. Yeah. That's all. I mean, like, I don't think it's like completely off-putting, but I think some firms will be a bit like, yeah, they would.
What? Yeah, it'll be confusing.
I got to do what now? No way, man.
No, but I agree. I think it's a legit critique because, I mean, it doesn't, because it's something new. They aren't necessarily, there's not something in their head that's automatically going to click and say, oh yes, I need a publishing culture.
I think that sums it up really well. That's how I would put it. Is that and that can be like a fear response goes up, and it's just like, oh, because some of them can't even spell SEO, let alone
right.
do it. So yeah. But well, why don't we kick it off? Let's do it, and then when we promote the recording, let's make sure, like on social media and all that stuff, we'll send out an email that the benefits are real clear there. We could even maybe do like an A/B test on an email and see which headline gets the most clicks, and that might help you guys, with.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, let's kick it off. I'll do a brief introduction and just hand over to you. So you've already got presenter mode, and I'll just talk. So okay, hello and welcome to the webinar today, how to build a publishing culture at your accounting firm. Really pleased to have along with me Caleb Newquist and Brian Swanson. They're going to explain why publishing content, particularly online, is really important for bringing traffic to your website and interest to your business, and then show how to convert that interest into real leads and clients. So I'm going to hand over to Brian and Caleb to introduce themselves. I hope you enjoy the webinar.
Hey, I'm Caleb Newquist, and my background is pretty traditional, at least from an accounting standpoint. I got a master's degree. I got a bachelor's and a master's degree in accounting, and then I started my career with a small firm in the Denver, Colorado area. And then a couple of years after that, I joined a Big Four firm and spent about 3.5 years there. Altogether about 5.5 years of experience as a CPA. I had a very, very short stint as an analyst with an insurance brokerage in the Denver area. And at that time, I was given the opportunity to be the founding editor of Going Concern, which is a popular accounting news and opinion site for accounting professionals. And I've been doing that just a little over 6 years. And earlier this year, I also became the head of content at Accounting Fly. And Accounting Fly is an online job board that is strictly for accounting positions in the accounting profession. And also earlier this year, I started a little side project called Yarn. It's a creative firm that does content services and other digital media consulting for the accounting profession. I also have spent some time as an adjunct professor of internet media at the Community College of Denver. I did that for about 5 semesters, and I've been published in various other online publications, including the ones that you see there. So that's a little bit about me, and now Brian.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Brian Thompson. I am the partner here at Flashpoint Marketing, and to tell you a little bit about myself, I think it's important when you're listening to someone speaking, at least I know I've been in my career, had the pleasure, air quotes, of listening to various presentations, and I always wonder, who is this person and why are they talking to me? So I want to make sure that you have a little bit of background about myself as well. I spent 15 years in the accounting, marketing, and business, I've spent 15 years doing business development and accounting marketing for accounting firms of various sizes across the United States. Worked at KPMG for some time here in Denver. Also served as the director of marketing and business development for a regional accounting firm in the Miami area, southern Florida. So in addition to all that, and probably more relevant to today's presentation about, we're going to be talking about websites and content and search engine optimization as a small part of it. So what are my qualifications there? Well, I have received SEMPO, which is the Search Engine Marketing Professionals Organization certification in both internet marketing and then in advanced search engine optimization. So a lot of letters to throw around the room, which hopefully draw you to the conclusion at least we know what we're talking about. So today's presentation, we're going to cover a number of areas, a number of things, and I just have listed them out here. You can see on the slide before you. We're going to talk about the foundation of SEO and website marketing. So really I want to establish the why in the world does an accounting firm need to develop a publishing culture. It seems quite unusual. That's like saying a manufacturing firm needs to develop an accounting culture. What does that mean? So I want to break that down for you very simply. I want to create the why, put the draw the lines between the dots for everyone here. We're going to talk about the content awakens. That's my tribute to Star Wars Episode 7. If you're listening to this on playback, hopefully you enjoyed the movie. Then Caleb's going to talk to you a little bit about, what are the steps to building a publishing culture, acting as a change agent, and then we're going to review our key takeaways, and of course, as always, in any of our presentations, we have times for questions and answers as well. So hopefully you can see this cartoon. I like to put one of these in every presentation that I'm personally involved in, which hopefully your pretending to listen skills are better than what Dilbert has identified here on the screen. And I realize that listening to a webinar is sometimes we're multitasking. So, you know, if anything comes up, you can feel free to ask a question or jot it down and email us later. We're happy to interact with you whenever it's convenient for you. So let's talk about SEO and website marketing. So this presentation is about building a publishing culture. So what does SEO and website marketing have to do with all of it? Well, the truth of the matter is that we have to sort of go back to the basics to understand why is content so important in transitioning your website from what used to be 15 years ago. It was you could just kind of, you know, put up a little brochure online and people would search to your website and, you know, there's a bullet point, you do outsourced accounting, great, and they would call you. Well, those days are gone, so I really want to just set the table, if you will, for those of you who aren't familiar with kind of the SEO and website marketing process and the key elements that are involved in it. And you'll see here the term I have here is getting back to basics. So for some of you, we'll be getting back to basics. For others of you, we'll be going to basics for the first time. So I have in front of me and you and essentially what is the three-point process for what makes an effective website marketing program. Now, it's important to note that the reason that I feel accounting firms need to take website marketing seriously, and having worked with accountants for so many years upon years upon years, is that we need to have a clear ROI. In other words, you've heard a lot about search engine optimization. You may know a firm or two in your region or area that's successfully deploying SEO, but by most firms, it's an underutilized approach. And so the things that I'm going to speak to you about today, and Caleb will later, are all designed to turn your website into a revenue generation avenue for your firm. Sometimes I hear from clients, well, I don't know about this. Our website really has never done much for us. Well, if you don't put the time and energy into the website, which is a great deal, a part of it is developing the copy and the content, it's going to have limited results for you. So really, if you follow the process we outlined today, both conceptually and practically, you will put yourself in a much stronger position to market your firm through your website. And most firms I've observed, when they look at doing a refresh or a rebrand of their website, they're doing it for a couple of reasons, the least of which is they want it to look nice. A savvy business person will look at it and say, how can I get the functionality I need to make the website deliver, to be profitable for me? And so if you bring us back to the screen, there's really three steps to a successful website. The first one is, if you see here on the left, it says engaging content, and below it I've asked what's offered. So if you think of your website as a store, if you will, in the United States, I like to pick on Kmart, but you may have a local one in your area. We go to the store because we want something from the store. We don't just show up because we have nothing better to do that day. So you have to keep in mind that the content your website offers is more or less the product that the customer is coming to view. So that's step one. Do you have engaging content? The next step is search engine optimization, which is a big, long word that means how are we marketing the content on our website? And more or less I put here is how is it being found? So if you think of it as following my Kmart example, it's the little flyer you get in the daily paper on Sunday here in the US, or maybe the annoying email blast they send you to say, hey, we have a special, we have a sale, come on in. And then finally, conversions are, once they get in the store, how are you getting them to pick up the so-called product and make a connection or make a purchase? And I would say with most of the accounting firms that we work with, they're very adept at SEO and conversions. A lot of people think very seriously about how are we optimizing, what are we optimizing, and how are we getting them to connect with us. But there's less emphasis or less understanding of how do I develop engaging content. One important point I want to make is that Google has come out and said, and when I talk about search engines, I speak specifically about Google because it accounts for somewhere in the neighborhood of 75, maybe 68% of the traffic. I know recently Bing got a leg up and they stole some traffic from Google, but if you can please the Google gods in terms of your website marketing program, you'll do real well and you'll be able to have some strong success. So after giving you the roadmap, I'm going to tell you now, what are we always hearing about? In other words, if you have some interest in search engine optimization, or if you're someone that you like it, or you go to a conference, let's say it's an AICPA or another country's accounting association, by now you've probably heard of SEO. I can't imagine you haven't. And there's a couple messages that we're told I keep hearing a lot about in terms of how to conduct effective website marketing. So you see here, there's a picture of a guy with a megaphone, and I put that there because I want to convey the feeling that we're always getting these messages about what we should be doing, what we should be doing, what we should be doing. So I'm going to try to break it down for you in a way that makes a lot of sense. So a lot of the things we hear about are keywords. Most people have heard about keywords. We know we got to have good keywords because Google wants the keywords. How are people finding us by the keywords? And these are all valuable things, but they're not the only thing. And up here on the slide, you'll see there are other things that, other what are called on-page SEO strategies that if you haven't done this yet for your accounting firm's website, this is a really great place to start, to look at these things and say, hey, you know what, let's go back and look at our website and say, all right, have we done these things? And then we have on-site SEO strategies, and these are a little more technical or complex, but you'll see by looking at the slide that I've presented in front of you, there's a few things that are very important to be aware of at this point. One is, the fifth one down is called responsive design. Now, responsive design means, for those who don't know, more than ever, we are accessing content through non-traditional computer devices. As an example, a tablet, a mobile phone. Sometimes phones look like tablets, but they're actually phones. We don't even know what they are anymore. Soon we'll be accessing content through a Google Glass. I mean, in other words, we're stepping away from a traditional desktop experience, or at least that's now seeping into the popular culture. And so Google has said, listen, guys, website owners out there, accounting firm website owners, we know that a large percentage of website traffic is being done on mobile devices. So you need to have your website set up in a way that it responds to the device that's accessing your website. What that means is if I look at a website on my phone, it should be optimized to appear nicely on my phone. If you're looking at my website on a tablet, it should be set up to look nice on my tablet. So that's something that Google has come out and said, if your website is not responsive, in mobile searches you'll be downgraded. You won't perform as well. And then, of course, the last bullet point here is called compelling user experience. The technical term for this, because everybody has to have acronyms in secret languages, is UX, user experience. Responsive design plays into user experience. Google says, all right, my product as a search engine is giving my customers the most relevant information that they want, and I got to give it to them in the format they want it in. So they look at websites and say, how easy is it to get through this website? You know, if this accounting firm says that they provide audit services, is it easy to get to it, or is it buried and hidden deep? So these are things we have traditionally thought about, traditional thinking in the accounting profession. And then as a second to this, we've also talked a lot about conversions. If you look back at this chart here, you know, I'm really speaking to SEO and I'm speaking to conversions now about where people generally focus their energy. And you see here, download now, there's a whole bunch of images. In other words, what are you doing to get someone to connect with you? Because once you get them in your store or you get them on the website, you don't just want them to literally leave, you want them to somehow or other make a contact with you. So what most accounting firms have done is they've followed this approach. They've optimized the content that exists on the website. They've got conversions for their website together. And what happens? Success. You get some leads, They may not be great leads, but you got some leads, you closed some business, you got some confidence. Hey, this can work for me. So I'm going to keep going at it. I'm going to keep optimizing. And suddenly over time, there's a drop-off. Things are going so well. What happened? As you can see from the slide here, there's a lot of crying babies in this situation. And the truth of the matter is that if you do SEO, if you focus on SEO and you focus on conversions, but not on engaging content development, your site can only go so far. So this brings me, now you know why you should care about this. That's important. So now I'm going to bring to you about what it means, what is engaging content, what does it mean, and how can it look for your accounting firm. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so you see here we modified it a bit to the Content Awakens. Caleb was never involved in the creation of this slide for copyright purposes. He won't say that, but I will. Hopefully this movie is great if you're listening to this on playback, or I'm really going to be in trouble. So now you understand, why do I need the content? Why is it important? I'm going to talk to you about the dark side of content, which is obviously a play on words. What do most accounting firms have on their website, at least I can say in North America? It's these kind of things. And probably your regulatory agency in your country may be different, but conceptually you'll understand what I'm saying. So we have, if you go on a website for any business, you have to know what the business does in order to determine if you can purchase from them. So we're obviously going to have that information on there. But in terms of so-called thought leadership, most accounting firms have things like regulatory updates. In the United States, that would be IRS pronouncements, FASB and GASB items. They may have industry updates, perhaps something about a forecast that was issued by a construction think tank, maybe a manufacturing update for the third or fourth quarter in a particular country would be up there. You certainly are going to have firm news, community activities, promotions, and awards. And not only are you having this because you want to show that your firm is doing something, but at least here in North America, the need for qualified, competent, young accounting professionals, that marketplace is super competitive right now. So firms are focusing on this to show, hey, we're doing something other than just crunching numbers 24 hours a day. And I think that's appropriate. And then finally, to that point, you see a lot about job opportunities, open positions, internship programs, so forth and so on. So that's what I call the dark side of content, because it's what everybody has, and at least, well, what most firms have, and it isn't doing the hard work, which is it isn't engaging prospects who may want to purchase something from you. Because the bottom line is, all these things that we just talked about are important items to have on your website, but they do very little to engage the prospect where they're at. In other words, if we look here at the light side, the yellow lightsaber, we see what kind of content does a prospect who has an issue or a challenge want to read about? Well, they want to read about something that's related to a problem they're having. They want to read content that's specifically related to their business, to their industry. If I have an issue in my company and I search through Google to find a solution to it, it makes sense that an accounting firm would be discussing common challenges that clients are having right now. If you want to target construction companies in your market and you already work with 20, well, it stands to reason that the issues that the construction clients you have are facing, the construction companies that are not your clients will more or less be having the same issues. You want to have content that provides solutions to obstacles and challenges. And finally, you want to have content that positions your firm as a resource or a solution provider. In other words, the key is to stop talking about ourselves as firms, how cool and slick we are, and about the regulations, and let's start talking about the client's needs and focusing on solving the client's problems. That's the real crux of it all, as to what engaging content really means. So my last slide, so Caleb can speak at any point through this conversation, is that we've walked you through what it is, why you need it, there's a compelling case for it. I've given you a strong definition of what engaging content is, but now the problem is, look, you're an accountant, you have billable responsibilities, You may be able to write something, but you're not a writer necessarily, or it may not be something you enjoy doing. So how in the world are you going to get content going through your firm? And I put a scary ghost on here just because it was just Halloween in the United States not too long ago. You can hire a ghostwriter. You can leverage a third-party content provider. There are spades of them here in the U.S. You could consider writing it yourself or engaging others in your firm. And I'm going to let Caleb speak more to these points, but I'm just going to say 2 quick points for you. The first thing is that I have seen factually you can have a website that is not at all optimized, but if you have good content, you will get traffic and you'll get qualified traffic. And the bottom line is that by building a publishing culture, which I realize sounds like a big thing and super scary, but really it's not, just any effort at doing this will yield you the highest level of not only quality content, but engagement with your core audience. And now we get Caleb C. Newquist Jr.
My middle initial is actually a J, so that was a nice try. Thanks, Brian. So I'm gonna attempt to define what a publishing culture is. I mean, it's a new idea, but it's something that Brian and I have talked a lot about. And at this stage, we're saying a publishing culture is a culture that engages an audience through various forms of digital content with the intent to build a community. So there's a lot of words in there that may not make a lot of sense to an accounting firm. For example, what audience? What does that mean? Who is the audience? Engagement or engaging them. What does that entail? Digital content, maybe that's one of the easier ones, but there may be things you're not familiar with. And then finally, community. What does that mean? And we see Liz Lemon here. If you're familiar with 30 Rock, Liz Lemon is a content creation master, as is Tina Fey. So whatever your preference, Liz Lemon, Tina Fey, content creators. All right, so let's talk about audience first. When you're thinking about your content, I want to say this up front. When you're thinking about content, you have to think about who your audience is and who you want your audience to be. And so there's various groups of your overall audience. So you might already have an audience and you just don't know it. So for example, your clients and your employees. These are people that are tapped into you already because they're working with you or working for you on a daily basis. Then you might have an intended audience, people that you want to find you. So that includes potential clients, maybe potential employees for recruiting purposes. And finally, there are other audience members, and these can be just information seekers, people like journalists, bloggers, maybe academics, maybe nonprofits that are looking for some help, or maybe just maybe as a board member or something like that. But then also, the nice thing about an audience is you don't know. Sometimes you don't know who your audience is, and so sometimes there can be surprises in the people that are coming to your site and wanting to learn about your firm, wanting to read your content and consume your content. So the point that I'm trying to make is this: in order to successfully build a publishing culture, you need to create content with these various groups in mind. So as Brian on the slide, a couple slides back, Brian was talking about the dark side of content. If you're just doing that kind of content, you're missing an important opportunity to tell other people, other than your current audience, who you are and what your firm is all about.
And how you can help.
And how you can help them. How you can solve their problems. And it should be noted that the dark side content does have its place within this content strategy. There are people in your audience that do want that kind of information. However, it cannot be the sole strategy. Excuse me, it cannot be your sole strategy. I think the worst, and here's a good example that I'll give you. one of the things that bugs me when I go onto some firm website is that they use their blog to publish press releases. And in my opinion, press releases are not content for the purposes of building your publishing culture. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But it's just not a suitable place for that kind of information. Press releases are something that you are trying to contact journalists directly. You're not trying. It's not an inbound piece of content, and they're written in such a way to be informative to journalists or other people that you want to know about your particular announcement. If you want to write, say, a blog post about that particular announcement, that is perfectly suitable for a blog, for example. But a press release, in my opinion, should be segregated, should be in a different part of the site, in a kind of a news and announcements area. That itself is fine. But that is not what your audience, the people that are coming to your website to learn about your firm and learn about what you do, learn about your values, learn about your culture. Press releases do very little for those people. So that's just one example of a piece of content that isn't necessarily appropriate for your intended audience.
I mean, if you think about it, a press release is a general piece of information for a reporter to take and craft to their audience. So it makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah. So now we'll talk about engaging your audience. And you can do that in a number of different ways, and I've listed those here, and I'll kind of touch on all of these. I personally have had experience with, I've had experience with all of these forms of content, and what's important to know is that you don't need all of these. That would be extremely overwhelming and unrealistic and kind of destine you for failure. But it's important to know that there are options out there when it comes to content and building your publishing culture. And these are some of those options. A combination of these with some effort and persistence can be a really excellent first step to building that publishing culture. Stuff like blogging, social media is a little bit more direct, whereas like video and websites, stuff like that is more of a production standpoint. That what I'm trying to say is a combination of skills are kind of need here, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. And one thing that I didn't put on this list that is also a good piece of content to consider are white papers. And so a lot of firms do use white papers as content, and it's a good way to market your expertise in a particular area, and so you should consider that as that's definitely appropriate for building a publishing culture, is the creation of white papers. So, like I said, I'll just touch on each of these a little bit. I'll kind of cover some pros and cons and just considerations. First of all, websites are great because they kind of house a lot of publishing tools that you might use, from your blogs to your social media to your podcast. Your website can show people where to follow, that platform of choice. This is probably the place where your website is probably where your audience is going to have the most meaningful experience with your firm, as in getting to know you. And then they can kind of choose, depending on what channels you provide, they can choose which ones they want to engage with, whether that's social media or email. But your website can kind of encapsulate all those things. It can inform people, this is what we do, these are various places where we are, and this is how you can follow us. A blog to me, and I have a soft spot for blogs because that's how I got into media, but blogs are great. They can be the heart of your content. Obviously, blog posts they can take many different forms, and they can inform people in a lot of different ways, but they can also point people to podcasts, to videos, images, infographics, updates about your social media and your newsletters. All of that can go on your blog. So it really is kind of a nucleus to a lot of the content that you can build in a publishing culture. Social media is probably the most diverse of these. There's lots of platforms to choose from. My favorite is Twitter. LinkedIn is very popular. A lot of firm leaders and other experts are blogging on LinkedIn directly now. YouTube is great if you want to do video. And many firms also have Facebook pages, but Facebook is kind of, my experience and success with Facebook has kind of been mixed, I would say. The reason people want to be on Facebook is because it's the largest social media platform. So it's one of those things that you simply can't ignore. You have to consider it as an option because just the size of the audience that you can reach. But it's not as quite as intuitive as some of these other platforms like YouTube or Twitter. Newer platforms like Instagram and Pinterest also have enormous potential. If they're in the hands of the right people, they can really build great audiences around those platforms as well. Moving on to newsletters, I think lots of people consider email to be the original social media tool. That's how we first started sharing interesting things with people that we knew, is via email. And lately it's kind of enjoyed a resurgence. I subscribe to a number of very interesting newsletters that I get either on a daily basis or maybe a weekly basis. And that is still a legitimate and effective way to engage your audience, is via email. And especially if you've been collecting email addresses of your clients and other people that are interested in your firm, if you've been collecting those for a while, starting a newsletter, if you don't have one already, is a really great way to keep people updated on a regular basis. Video and images. Visually engaging content is always a great way to set yourself apart. A firm here in the U.S. called Witham Smith & Brown has been doing flash mob videos for probably close to 5 years now, and that has created a lot of buzz for them, gotten them a lot of attention, and it really says a lot about their firm's ability to create a publishing culture, one that is welcome, and they get a lot of people in their firm to participate. And the web is becoming more visual, and so that if you're able to do some video content or do some image content, that visual content is becoming a bigger part of the web experience. Webinars, we're on a webinar right now. It's a very easy way and very inexpensive way to engage an audience, especially if you're a subject matter expert or have some kind of interesting ideas to share, like building a publishing culture. Webinars are a great way to reach people so that you can put a voice with maybe a name. Maybe, I've been writing on the web for several years now, but I haven't done a lot of webinars at this point. So this is kind of it's a new platform for me as a presenter. I've emceed plenty of webinars, but to actually produce content and share knowledge is a great way to kind of diversify how you share that content and how you share your knowledge. Podcasts have actually been around for a while. I just saw something yesterday. This American Life, which is a popular podcast in the United States, has been around for 20 years now. However, they have recently just experienced a surge in popularity, and in about the past year or so. But podcasts are more, if you're not familiar with them, it's more like listening to the radio, listening to a radio program. But there's a few firms out there that are doing them. The most notable one that I listen to is done by Jason Blummer, who of Blummer CPAs. He's been doing a podcast with Greg Kite, who's a writer for Going Concern. They've been doing a podcast for over 4 years now, and they basically just they bring on interesting people and they interview them about topics that are relevant to the accounting profession. And it's very popular. They've got loyal listeners, and they've been doing it for almost 5 years. So they've had a lot of success with that. And final one on this list is infographics. Infographics, again, visual, informative, and educational content. It's just kind of a fun way to boil down maybe a complex issue into a different medium, and something that people can kind of look at and maybe make sense of an otherwise complex issue. But those are something, infographics are easy to, once they're built, they're easy to publish on a blog or a website, share on social media, very versatile, but also visually engaging. So the final point that I guess I'll make about these platforms is, if you're already doing some of these and you find that they're working, like you feel like you're getting some engagement and you do feel like there's a regular audience, keep doing those things. Focus on keeping those going, because as the adage says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. With that said, try some new things. Be willing to experiment. A lot of these platforms are really easy to learn about yourself. I'm personally all self-taught. As I said before, my background is accounting, but blogging and social media and newsletters and different aspects that go into these, they can be learned. And so if you have the time and you have the inclination, learning some of these new platforms can be very valuable. All right, so a little bit more about content, and specifically narrative. I think, well, the point that I make here at the bottom is, it's not the story you tell, it's how you tell it. And I think that's really important. And you can see here, if you know Seinfeld, this is George Costanza, and this GIF is from the episode where they were trying to write a pilot episode for their show, and they struggled with that. And so a lot of times, a lot of questions that I get, what I hear from a lot of people is, I don't know what to write about. I don't know how to get started. Like, I waste so much time just trying to think of something to write about. And so here are some suggestions for getting started, or at least helping you in that aspect of content creation and building a publishing culture. Number one is, tell a story. Tell the story of your firm. I mean, that's a really easy one. I mean, all firms, all businesses have stories because there's people behind them. So being able to tell the story of a firm, of its origin stories are very, very popular, but also then the story of your people, the story of your clients, whatever is going to engage your audience. Find those stories and tell them. Another good way to, or a good narrative, is just information. So this is kind of on the fringes of the dark side type of content, but whenever there is information, whenever there's new information, take that information and put it in your own words and make it engaging. Just simply linking to an update of one kind or another, it does very little. It does very little to engage your audience, and you might have an opinion about it, or you might have a specialized knowledge. This is your opportunity to inform your audience about something that is brand new, potentially complex, and you might be able to do it better than anyone else. Especially the more, and in fact, the more complex the topic, the better the chance you have to make it digestible for an audience that probably doesn't want to try to read and understand it for themselves. So informing your audience is a really important way, or it's an important narrative that you can take in creating content. Related to that are deep dives. So what I mean by a deep dive is taking a topic, an important topic, or maybe a widely reported topic, or a widely covered topic, and get into the nitty-gritty of it. And again, make it your own. Do it in your own style. And that sounds like maybe a hard thing to do, but really, you kind of have to just think about it. How would you explain it to a client if they were sitting right in front of you? And then take that narrative and then put it into a blog post or put it into social media. Like, if you can do it in 140 characters, that's outstanding on Twitter. That's a really effective and engaging way to explain something. Another easy narrative, and this is one of the easier ones for giving for ideas, is just discuss problems. Like, what common problems do your clients have, or what common problems do you see in the marketplace, or if it's a current event, what are those problems that are being widely talked about, and just put them out there for discussion. I think one of the things that is important about building an audience and also building a community, which I'll touch on in a bit, is it's encouraging people to participate in the conversation. So the conversation can really start with you and saying, hey, I've been reading a lot about this issue that's out there. I kind of want to just cover these points and kind of just dive in or discuss those a little bit, but then asking other people what they think. Maybe they're clients, maybe they're other CPAs, but there are going to be people in your audience that want to discuss those problems out in the open. And I think that's a really great narrative that you can take with your content. Finally, and I know this is Brian's favorite, is offer solutions. Your potential clients want to know if you can help them. And if you are producing content that says, this is what we do, these are the problems that we solve for our clients, we've done it before, we can do it for you, that kind of stuff really shortens your sales cycle, because before you're even talking to someone on the phone, they already know that you've got a knowledge base in place and that you've been able to solve this problem for other clients. And so therefore, when they get you on the phone, they can say, hey, I read this. Or if maybe they're emailing you, they say, hey, I saw this blog post that you wrote. I'm really interested. We have a similar problem. We think we'd like to talk to you about maybe starting a dialogue and seeing what kind of solutions you might offer us.
So one comment on that point is that the difference between a website that has a bullet point that says we do state and local tax consulting and a website that offers up, here's the problem a lot of manufacturing companies in the state of New York have when they expand operations into X, and here's how we solved it. It's night and day. I mean, the level of expertise demonstrated in that one blog post, in those 500 words, is very powerful.
And finally, the last bullet point says to entertain. And I mean, frankly, that's what got me into publishing. I liked writing blog posts, and I liked writing blog posts that were sarcastic or funny or irreverent. Excuse me, but just a way to make content that was, the accounting business is as we all know, it's not a sexy business. So if you can create content that people are enjoying and they want you're going to build a loyal audience. And if they know that you're going to continue to consistently produce content that's informative, that discusses problems, that offers solutions, and if you do it in an entertaining way, you're going to build a fan base really, really quickly. Okay, so we've talked about content, and the hard part about content is that it doesn't create itself. So obviously, so you kind of have to think about. Oh, I do want to talk about community just briefly before I get into content creators. No, we can stay on that slide. Yeah. So community is something that I touched on earlier, and this is what I just want to say to it, and we'll get to the next slide. But the idea behind a publishing culture, one of the intentions of a publishing culture, is to build a community around your firm. That is loyal followers, whether those people are clients, or customers, or employers, or maybe they're just fans. The people that are visiting your site on a regular basis, that follow you on your social media platforms, those people are your community, the people that want to engage with you. The more loyal those people are, the stronger your brand is. And I think this can be done in a couple of different ways. And I'll go back, I'll mention Witham, Smith & Brown again, the firm that does the flash mob videos. They also have a partner by the name of Tony Nitty, who writes for Forbes. He's been blogging for a long time, but he's an excellent, excellent blogger. He does lots of great content for Forbes. He's even written for Going Concern on a few occasions. And Tony has been able to build a following for himself, but it's an extension of his firm. And he's a tax expert, so he does a great job of discussing really complex tax issues, and then he throws in Simpsons jokes. And so he has become immensely popular as a result, and that does wonders for Witham's brand and in building a little sub-community of their larger community. So community is one of the goals of these publishing cultures, to build that loyal fan base. Okay, so that's enough about community. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay, so back to content creators. So who's going to create this stuff? Well, you've got some possibilities, and as I say in the last bullet, the reality is it's probably going to be a combination of these. If you're fortunate enough to have a marketing person at your firm, that person will hopefully be someone who can drive the content creation. Maybe they manage the social media account. Maybe they assign topics to other content creators. They'll liaise with outside agencies. But if you've got a marketing person, they're going to be key to creating content, but also overseeing it, implementing the overall strategy, all of those kinds of things. Employees. It might sound crazy, and especially for a profession that relies on utilization and billable hours, your employees really can make a huge difference in building your publishing culture, because they're on the front lines. They're the ones talking to clients. They're the ones with knowledge expertise. They're the types of people that have opinions about these kinds of complex issues. And so they are, I think, a very valuable and often untapped resource of content potential. Finally, third-party agencies. There's a number of creative firms out there that can help your firm accomplish some of these content goals, or even building a publishing culture, everything that comes along with that. So if you're a little short on resources as far as people go, maybe you can outsource some of that stuff, and that's where agencies come into play. And finally, you can be one of the primary content creators if you're a leader in the firm, or if you're the marketing director at your firm. You can take an active role in these, and that especially for the leaders in the firms, this demonstrates your commitment to building a publishing culture and also engaging people on the web in a way that is going to attract new clients, new employees, potential successors to your firm. I mean, there's no limit to what your participation and support of this kind of a culture can do. So if you can, it's really important that the leaders in the firms take an active role, some kind of active role in content creation. And like I said, the reality is it's probably going to be a mix of these for most firms. But the final point I'll make is find the people in your firm who are willing and able to participate. So, for example, if you've got somebody on staff who does video production on the side, holy cow, tap into those skills. Or if somebody's a photographer and enjoys using Instagram and has ideas for how that could be incorporated into your publishing culture, that's another. I mean, things like that are just, you don't necessarily think about how, video and images, how that can incorporate into your firm, but in the right hands, those kinds of things can be really powerful and really effective to telling your story as a firm and engaging people in a new way, and really differentiate yourself from the other firms out there. So one kind of hard part about finding these content creators is identifying who they might be. And I've got a list here of suggestions. The first is your subject matter experts. And the one that I always mention, because it's such a complex area of tax, is transfer pricing. For example, if you've got a transfer pricing genius at your firm, and they are willing to kind of share that knowledge in some kind of form, getting that person involved will really go a long way to demonstrating to potential clients how you can solve their problems. And I think that's probably one of the key things is getting those experts out there and saying, these are the solutions that we've done, and this is we can do this for you as well. That goes a long way to shortening that sales cycle. I'll just mention leaders briefly again. These are the visible people. Just find simple ways for them to contribute so that it does a couple of things. Number one, it'll show the outside world that they're behind this publishing culture, and that they're looking to engage their audience in new and interesting ways. But also it demonstrates to people within the firm that they're serious about this culture and that they want to encourage others to participate as well. Third bullet, I've got mad scientists. And what I mean by that are, who are the people that are kind of on the cutting edge and kind of off in no man's land, or not no man's land, but on kind of the cliff, just doing weird things and kind of experimenting with new ideas. And who are these people? If this sounds like someone in your firm, find out if they're interested in creating content, or if they're on social media. Maybe they've got a Twitter account already. I don't know. But people who are kind of on the edge of the fringes, those people usually have ideas, and a lot of times they want to share them. So if you've got someone like that in their firm, maybe approach them and see what their interest is. Thinkers, these are the quiet cerebral types that I think most firms have. These are the people who kind of look at things from different angles, and that can make for some really interesting content, especially written content, some of those deep dives, blog posts, things like that I was talking about. Having a different perspective on those kinds of things. If you've got a real kind of brainy type of person in your firm who's kind of a contrarian, those kinds of things can really, they go a long way to getting the attention of your audience and saying, oh, this is kind of an unorthodox point of view. Let's read about this. I want to understand where this person is coming from. And finally, opinionated people. That's an easy one. I think, people who have strong opinions don't mind sharing them. To be honest, great content usually means the best content, or the greatest content, is the ones where the people creating it are totally comfortable being vulnerable. That is, putting their ideas out there and just letting people kind of attack them if they're kind of unorthodox or strange. The internet was kind of born on that idea, is that, especially within publishing, is that the more opinionated and the more kind of out there that you can be and willing to defend your ideas, the more success you have, the better of a following that you can build. And finally, if none of these are kind of speaking to you, then maybe it's just time to ask around. Ask your fellow partners, ask some of your employees, like, what do they like to do on the internet? Do they have a blog, or have they ever blogged? Are they on social media? What experience do they have with social media? You really want people who understand and believe in the value of good content to be involved, because they're the ones that are going to consistently make content for you, but also be persistent, because good content, it's not kind of a one and done thing. Good content in publishing cultures, you have to be persistent, you have to be consistently producing content, and you got to find the people that are willing to commit to it, and that can be kind of one of the harder parts of it. But there are people out there, when given the chance, people find that they really do enjoy creating content for the web. And here's a list of firms that I just kind of came up with that I consider to have at least strong elements of publishing cultures. Blummer Cpas out of Greenville, South Carolina. That's Jason Blummer. Like I said, Jason has that successful podcast. He's got a blog for his network. If you're familiar with the Thrival group. He has a blog for that group, but then he also has a blog that he does for clients that's on his firm's website. So Jason's got a real strong publishing culture at his firm. New Vision CPA Group out of Chicago. That's Jody Padar. She writes at Accounting Today, and she's very active on Twitter and encourages other people to do so. So Jody definitely has worked publishing into the culture at her firm. Roth and Company is a firm in Des Moines, Iowa. They have a blog. They have a great blog that I've followed for a long time. That's kept by Joe Kristen, who is their technical director. He teaches tax. He understands tax. He's a real expert. He's active on Twitter, and he's been picked up by outlets like The Atlantic and Bloomberg, and so his analysis and knowledge has been noted by some of the bigger legacy publishers out there. So that's gotten him some attention for his firm. Weiser Mazars is a firm that's primarily in the Northeast U.S., but they also have an office in Chicago. They've done some great social media campaigns. The one that I remember was an inflatable shark that was making it around their office during busy season, and it was kitschy and kind of silly, but it totally worked. And that was a couple of years ago, and they've done they did a whiteboard campaign last year. So Weiser has definitely been able to tap into social media and has had some successful and notable campaigns come out. I've mentioned Witham a couple of times. Their flash mob videos, Tony Nitty's success on Forbes and elsewhere. Witham is definitely Witham is a larger firm. Witham and Weiser both are larger firms, probably top 25 in the U.S., I think. So it can be done at the larger firms. It isn't something just for smaller firms. So if you're from a more sizable firm, top 100 or so, know that this can be done at a firm like yours. And then Ray and Associates was one of yours?
Yeah, Ray and Associates are from out of Ohio. They do a podcast program. They do it very well. If you want to look at somebody in the accounting industry that does podcasts, take a look at them. I guess wrapping it up, if there aren't any questions, key takeaways from my angle of vision are there's a compelling reason to focus on content. If and when it's done right, it can generate a lot of opportunities for your organization. I know it's different than probably what most accountants are thinking as the primary method for generating interest and opportunities, but it is a compelling one. Our company works with an accounting firm in the northeastern United States that generates $2.5 million US in closed business per year from their website following these guidelines. We just started working with another firm in over a 3-month period. By following this kind of program, they've generated $50,000 US. So it's there, the opportunities are there. It's just sort of digging in and seeing how you can make it your own.
And I think the other thing that I would say is, as far as the takeaway is, just consider the possibilities of what content you're doing now, if you are doing content, if it's working, and what your approach has been, and then re-examine and look at some of the possibilities for improving it. If you don't think it's been giving you the results you want, it's kind of time to maybe reassess what your strategy's been, what platforms you've been on, and maybe start fresh.
So here, just to wrap it up, if you're listening to this on playback, hopefully the Star Wars movie went well. You can let me know. Here's my contact information, and Caleb's on here also. If you have any questions or are thinking about implementing such a program for yourself, give one or both of us a call. We do, work together on a number of firms with a number of firms to help get them started, to keep the process going. And Caleb functions more in the content advisor role, and I function more in the making sure your website's producing through technical SEO and more the techie website stuff. Or if you have questions, also feel free to email everyone. But if the Star Wars movie was terrible, please don't email me. Sorry.
Yeah, all I would add was, is that if you're not sure, if this all sounds good to you, but you're just not really sure, just get in touch with us and we'll start a dialogue, because every firm is different and every solution is going to be different. And so understanding what you are and what you've tried and what you think you should be doing, I mean, all those things are important. So just call us up, send us an email, and we'll start a dialogue if you think this is something that you want to move forward with.
So if anyone's got any
That's
questions,
it, right?
Sorry. I was just going to say, if anyone's got any
Go ahead.
questions, fire them in. I've got a couple of questions, maybe to kick things off, which would, Brian, question for you really is that, should firms be doing SEO themselves? Is this something that a firm should take on? I mean, the analogy I would give would be, I'd probably not advise most businesses to do their accounting themselves. Is SEO something like that that's kind of out of scope for an accounting firm, or can they do it themselves?
I think the answer is generally, generally the answer is I wouldn't advise it, only because, unless you have formal training in it, yeah, you might make some success initially, but the long-term strategic value will be lost. The only exception I've seen are quite large firms, maybe top 25 firms that hire in experts as employees. Obviously, in that case, it's a whole different story, but if you're just a smaller practitioner, you don't have the massive resources of a top 10 U.S. firm, then I would say you would be wise to look outside for an experienced provider. And also, I would encourage you to, look for a vendor that understands your industry. Don't settle for someone that works with banks and real estate companies and pizza houses and coffee shops, because the odds of them really intrinsically understanding what it is your business is about is quite low. And that is a big part of developing a successful SEO strategy is understanding the sales cycle of an accounting practice.
I would just echo Brian's point there, that finding an expert in that knows the accounting profession is pretty key. Don't settle for someone that knows nothing about accounting or knows nothing about accounting firms. Definitely find people who are experts or have worked with or worked within firms before.
So as somebody who has worked with a lot of accounting firms, I know what the question that quite a few of them will be thinking is, how much budget would you need to put aside for an effective SEO program?
It's hard to know the answer to that, because I think the number is in part and parcel dictated by how far along their website is, and of course how much search engine optimization they've done in the past. I can just tell you that normal programs with our firm and others like ours, run something like $2,000 to $3,000 a month, depending on the level of service you need. Some are less, some are more. A lot of it depends. Are we running the whole program for you, or are we integrating and managing your team? So, but the truth of the matter is, even if you're investing $24,000 US a year, you get one or two 401k audits that are $15,000, $20,000 the first year. You'll make that money back in spades, plus all the other improvements that are being done to your SEO strategy. So.
Yeah, fair point. Well, I've heard a comment before that there's no such thing as expensive or cheap advertising or marketing. It's just either good or bad. So if it works, spend more money on it. Caleb, question for you. So if an accounting firm hires a content creator and outsources that role, what's the best way for them to get the most from that relationship? Because I think working with third-party suppliers, you've got to brief them well, you've got to work with them well, and for a lot of firms, they won't have worked with a content creator. So what would be some tips on how to get the most of a relationship like that?
Well, I think the easiest thing is to just really be honest with this person, this content creator. Be honest with what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, like what kind of results they want. And I think ultimately the results are they want more business, probably. And so giving that he or she a good idea of what their business is all about, knowing who their clients are, what maybe especially if your firm has a specialization or a niche, being able to help that content creator understand the importance of that and understand what kind of solutions that they can provide. Because then what that person can do is they can start educating themselves a little bit about it, but then also make suggestions. I think one of the things, like I said before, what a lot of people struggle with is what to write about or what kind of content to create. And if you're engaging a content creator, you've got to kind of let them know where the pain points are, and hopefully that person can use that when they start doing their own research and investigating what kind of content they want to do or suggest to this firm. They might have an idea of where the pain points are, and they can kind of hit the ground running. So to say, hey, this sounds like a good area, or this sounds like an important area. What kind of content could we create around this? And so just to reiterate, just being honest about what your firm is good at, what the pain points are in terms of your content might be, or the pain points of your clients, and sharing those with that content creator. And also, shoot, I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, but just having honest conversations about expectations and results as well, and knowing how that person can help them create the content that's going to result in new clients and potentially new employees, and reaching that intended audience.
That's great. So I don't think there's any more questions. So unless you've got any more points you want to make, I think all that is left to do is say thank you both for a really engaging presentation. Lots to take away for firms and work with. And so yeah, did you have any final points, Brian or Caleb?
Just thank you. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for listening.
All right, thanks guys. We'll wrap it up there.
Take care. Cool. Thanks.